Tonight, we interview Simon Dallow. How did he start out? How did he get into the media world? And what advice does he have for you? But right now, it's 6 o'clock.
All right, very good. That was very Jim Hickey.
Yeah. Cheers, Simon. Great to have you here today.
Thank you, Jake. Well, great to have you here today too.
Yeah, true. I guess I'm not the actual person on the set in this case, am I?
Sorry about the background. It's blank at the moment. Our graphics operator took off quicker than I could get to put up the imagery.
No, it's definitely always been on my bucket list to sit on the One News set. So it's.
What do you think of it so far? You've had a look underneath as well.
Yeah,
you have to get a cutaway of that.
I think I'd wear shorts if I was presenting.
Really? There's a wide shot that comes from that camera though.
Oh,
so
maybe not.
You see the girls are all very conscious of this. They stick their leg, they stick that thing over there in the way so they can't see their legs, the jandals and shorts.
Yeah, no, it's very, very cool. Hey, so Oompher's all about inspiring people to achieve extraordinary things. So
yeah, congratulations. It looks good.
Thank you very much. Who and what during your life and career has inspired you?
It's a question I've been asked a few times. I don't really have specific mentors. I've always been fascinated by the news. It comes from, being from a small child. Dad was always reading the paper in the morning. It's like, what is this preoccupation? When you're about 3 or 4, you don't rationalise it in those terms, but what is this preoccupation? And then as you start reading and becoming more familiar with what's happening in the world, it becomes more and more interesting. So I've always had an insatiable curiosity, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, and you've just, I guess from that young age, you sort of picked up the newspaper when you were pretty young and just always followed it?
Yeah. Back in the day, there was only the newspaper and then the news at 6 o'clock. Of course, there wasn't the multi-platforms and everything we've got nowadays. The internet, of course, has changed everything, really.
Yeah, and I guess you've done a lot in your life, from obviously starting out in terms of law as a barrister with McElroy Milne, and then tour guide in 1987 for 6 years and anchor of TVNZ. So tell me about the early days. I mean, where did it all begin for you in terms of getting into law in the first place?
It actually began when I joined the Air Force and when I was in my last year of school. Okay. I passed the exams to become a pilot trainee for the RAF.
Oh, wow, okay.
And the RAF and a secondment from the NZRAF. But I went in there for the pre-induction course, and at the end of those 2 weeks I was dismissed because my femur was too long. I was training to become I wanted to become a fighter pilot with the RAF, but it turned out that I couldn't actually get through the first stage of training because my femur was 4 millimetres too long and I would have lost the edge of my kneecap had I ejected. Yeah. So then I had to come up with something else to do, and I thought law would be challenging and interesting. And I think it ties in well with what came much later too, because as a lawyer you have to have an insatiable curiosity, I think, for the facts, the truth, the justice, and the skills that you have there, including research and writing, translate very well to media. There's a lot of journalists who have been lawyers and vice versa. Okay.
And when you were, I guess you were educated at Lynston and St Peter's College and then went on to Auckland University when you were studying law. So even back then, when you were setting out to, I guess, go into be a lawyer as your career, did you one day see yourself potentially maybe able to be working in news, or was it something that didn't really cross your mind at that stage?
No, never crossed my mind. Two critical things, I guess. I was a lawyer when I came out. I practiced McElroy Milne for a couple of years, but I was under the tutelage there of the partner who was Brent Impey, and Brent Impey became the head of Media Works, ultimately. But I assisted him in the application of TV3 to get its warrant, so TV3 has always been of great interest to me, as I fought for it. In fact, I put off my OE until that was done. My OE, and so Brent became a huge influence over those years. And later, my OE changed because I went to London to practice law and had lined up a good firm to work for. But in the 3 weeks between leaving here, doing a bit of travelling and getting there, the stock market crash in 1987 happened. And that changed the nature of the legal work that was going to be available to me. The law firm said, hey, it's all bankruptcy and insolvency work now. And I'd done a little bit of that here, had a taste of it, and it wasn't something I enjoyed. So I thought, I'll try something different. And I fell into, I won't bore you with the long story, but I fell into tourism.
Yeah,
and became a tour guide in Europe for those next 6 years. Yeah.
6 years, okay. So that's quite a long time doing tour guiding. Did you learn a lot about the world and different parts?
You work for about 30 weeks a year, and then you have the rest of the year off. But when you work for those 30 weeks, it's dawn to dusk, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So you get quite embittered and sick of people, and then you need 10 weeks off just to recover, and then you get 10 weeks holiday, I guess. Did I learn a lot about the world? Absolutely, yeah. I consider that, despite the law degree and what I've done now or since, that period was the most formative in shaping my worldview and my understanding of how people work.
Okay, and just talking about, I guess, throwing in that career in law to get into other things as well, I can imagine going through that career in law, I mean, it must have been hard to chuck in what was probably guaranteed to be quite a lucrative career as such, for something maybe less guaranteed and maybe less guaranteed in terms of your future, maybe?
I think legal practice, and I was a litigator. So litigators is probably the worst paid of the legal branches. You know, commercial law if you want to make money, property law for security, but litigation, you know, is fueled by a sense of wanting justice. I think part of that might be there might be a Freudian element to this too, in that my father was a senior police officer, and so maybe I had father issues. You know? I wanted to get people off crimes that they were wrongly convicted for or wrongly charged with.
Yeah. Okay, and it was in 1993, a couple of years before I was born actually, when you joined TVNZ, TV2 as the nightly newsreader.
December 93 I got the job. I remember it was just a few days before Christmas, and that put an end to going back to Europe. Okay. And then 94, 7th of March 94 was my first night on air. I remember that because it was my sister's birthday.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started on TV2 for 1 year, worked with Marcus Lush and originally Laura Lee Mason. We started the program Newsnight, magazine show aimed at younger people on TV2, and I read the 5-minute news bulletin at the start of that.
And then later on it was the late night news, wasn't it?
A year later I went to TV1 onto One News, so it's been 20 years with TV1.
Okay, well, and back then when you started out, did you ever want to become sort of a more media personality, or were you more interested in the cold hard facts of the news and just wanting to tell the news as it is?
Never been interested in the media personality side. People always say I don't want to be a celebrity, or it's always self-deprecating, but there's no doubt there are some benefits to having profile and there are some disadvantages. My personal position is that the disadvantages outweigh the benefits, but it's insatiable curiosity. It is a fantastic privilege to be able to be here, to be the conduit for news. Yeah. You know, to put it in perspective, people say you're a celebrity. I say I'm a shop assistant. You know, we are involved in the industry of producing stories that people are interested in and making those stories compelling. There are people behind the scenes doing all that work. I'm just the shop assistant who hands it over to you at the end of the day.
Okay, right. That's an interesting way of looking at it, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I think news more than anything else is vocational. If you want to be a star, then become an actor, or go towards personality television. Yeah. Where it's about the people rather than the content.
Yeah.
News is about content.
Absolutely, yeah. So what would a day in the life of say Wendy and yourself look like?
I can't speak for Wendy, generally, but
yeah.
Wake up first thing, grab the phone, still lying in bed, trying to wake up. Check out local websites in particular, just see what the news that's happened overnight has been, how stories have developed and moved on. Follow that up as necessary on the computer. But basically the morning is spent getting my act together and trying to get a handle on where stories are at.
Yeah. Okay, and then you come to work and you help.
Come to work around lunchtime, and then there's really is just following them through, because I showed you the bulletin, how the bulletin run down. There's maybe 20 or 30 stories on the go at any one time. So you're just trying to see where those stories are at, how they're shaping. There's a 9 o'clock meeting every day to assess stories, to assess the bulletin rundown, and to allocate stories to individual reporters and producers to oversee them with those. At 2 o'clock there's another meeting, that's the critical one. That's then a progress report on all of those things, and also leading to a final establishing of the rundown, being the order of the stories that will be presented later in the day. But at 6 o'clock the bulletin is live, and those stories can change, and late breaking stories make the whole day far more interesting.
Yeah.
Stressful but interesting.
Okay, so
on a boring day, it all just flows very, very easily. Right. Our role, Wendy and mine, is mainly to prepare promos for both television and radio. Okay. So apart from following the stories through, that's our main focus through the afternoon.
Yeah, but I guess there is that really important aspect, as you're saying, to sort of see what the stories are and make sure you're across them, so that when you actually read them at night, you sort of know what's happening as well.
Yeah. The last thing you want to be doing is just reading words of somebody else, not having any connection to it, because it's important to be convincing, to have conviction, to be sincere, to be natural and confident in order to be able to engage the audience. One thing that has changed over 20 years is the way that we talk to people is no longer declaratory. We no longer have this information to ourselves in the way we did 20 years ago. The pictures would come in, we'd have them, then we'd broadcast them. Nowadays, you've probably seen those pictures because you've got the access to the net, and the net has sped up the whole process. So 20 years ago it was more declaratory and authoritative, and people talked about gravitas for newsreaders. Nowadays it's about being engaging and conversational, because you're trying to add value to what people already know, but different consumers, different viewers are watching the bulletin from different perspectives. Some of them have been following it all day, and they're looking for added value or analysis. Some people haven't seen a thing. They just tune in. 6 o'clock's my time to catch up with what's happening, so they want an overview. So we have to be able to respect all those different perspectives. Some people find it insufficient because it doesn't quite meet their needs, but we're trying to cover a whole range of demand.
Okay, and as a newsreader or a journalist, what do you do to sort of upskill yourself? Is there ways that you believe young journalists out there can be upskilling themselves?
Tough question. I'm not your conventional journalist because I didn't come through the journalistic route, but I think the legal pathway is, I mentioned the parallels. In terms of upskilling, I think, well, let's face it, journalism isn't rocket science. I know we do 3-year degrees. I wonder about that because I think it's part of our qualifications industry. I don't think journalism needs that long, but journalism is about learning and doing. You know, once you're there, once you've done your learning, you need to be practicing it over and over. And the things that get you ahead are a true commitment to the vocation of it. If you want to be a star, get out of journalism and go to something else. Or you can be you might have a shtick or a particular angle that you take that's about you. But if you're dedicated to the news and the content, then you're going to want to know these things. You're going to be vocationally driven. You kind of answers. It's that curiosity I mentioned before. Curiosity and tenacity. You've got to have a love of language to a degree as well.
Right. So absolutely. And I just want to talk a wee bit about in your career as well. I mean, we often talk about people's stories in terms of all the successes they've had and places they've gone. But for you, what are some of the struggles you've had and ways you've overcome those? Maybe coming through, whether it was in law or in journalism. We've obviously talked about the 1987 crash, but other than that, what are some of the other struggles you maybe had in journalism, or things you've had to learn, or things you didn't expect?
It's like a job interview, isn't it? Describe how you overcame a particularly challenging moment. Oh boy, yeah, the career derailment. You come to these crossroads occasionally, and you go, "What should I do here? Should I follow the path well travelled, or should I head off on a tangent?" And sometimes you've got to trust your gut instinct. You know, as you get older, you're probably less willing to put things on the line. When you're younger and you have less to lose, then I would say, chase those things. One journalism expert once said, chase rabbits occasionally.
Right. Yeah.
Get off the path.
Yeah, not the occasional news blooper.
Oh, the occasional news blooper. Don't look on YouTube. A couple of malapropisms have popped up in there.
Yeah. And I guess for you personally, in the news world or whatever, do you still have sort of a dream as such still to come? I mean, you're still pretty young, so is there things that you
Thanks for that. That's very kind of you. I don't think people would agree, but
is there things that you want to get on and maybe do other things as well, or?
Yeah. Look, I am very much your conventional journalist, even if coming from an unconventional background. I'd love to do another current affairs program. I had 2 years with a program called Agenda, which was the forerunner to Q&A. So political interviews. I left news presenting for those 2 years. And I'd love to do another current affairs program. I don't think you can find anybody in television who doesn't want to have their own chat show.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that you'd want to have your own here too, the way you're conducting this. Everybody would love to have those famous guests. Everybody would love a combination of, Graham Norton, David Letterman.
Yeah, a bit of everything in there.
Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
One of those sort of shows. Everyone wants one.
Okay.
Will that happen now? No, that boat's sailed for me. So, I think in terms of my relative youth, as you put it, no, I don't think those opportunities will present themselves now. So my opportunities going forward are to do this job as well as I can, and possibly down the track look at some documentary style stuff.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. I've just got a few quick fire questions to finish off. I guess as a sort of self-declared, news geek who just wants more news and less to go with it.
I was more news junkie than geek, but yes, you're
news
yes.
junkie.
All right, I'll take your point.
Okay, yeah. As a sort of self-declared news junkie and someone who just wants less and more news to go with it, I mean, who are some of the journalists and media personalities in the world who you respect the most, and why is that?
I think the Americans had some really good ones. There was the golden age of news just prior to the effect of the internet, when on CBS, ABC, and NBC you had Dan Rather, Tom Brokaw, and Peter Jennings. And of those, I thought Peter Jennings was always the best. I think the ability to connect with someone through television is based on a conviction, a belief in the news, but you need to be confident, you need to be natural and relaxed, and those are the three criteria that have superseded authority and gravitas. I think Peter Jennings in particular was able to be in command of the content, to talk to people, not at people, and I think that's a really important thing. I think he would be the number one. I remember being in Washington, in DC in '96, when Peter Jennings invited Tom Brokaw onto his program. I mean, these networks were at massive war with each other, but Tom Brokaw had just spent 30 years as the lead anchor on NBC. And Peter Jennings brought him over to his program on ABC, and they talked about it. That was incredible. You know? I just wish we had the maturity to be able to do something like that here, to work together, not necessarily undermining each other. We're in competition with the other major channels. But you know, a level of journalistic maturity that you can talk about the topics without it all being overwhelmed by the competition and the marketing imperatives.
Absolutely. Okay. And what are some of the core mistakes, I guess, that you observe young journalists making coming through?
Trying to be somebody else, mainly.
Okay.
Trying to having a role model or a hero or something in their mind that says, I have to be like him or like her. This is on screen. And also wanting to be famous before anything else.
Okay. And just before we finish off, I mean, when you look back over your whole career so far, what are you most proud of what you've achieved so far?
Oh, hopefully that's to come. I just want to be an honest presenter, giving you the content without getting myself in the way. I don't get in the way of a story, I think, is the first bit of advice I give to any aspiring presenter. You know, don't worry too much about how you look, what you're wearing, what your makeup is. I mean, the things that, if you're watching a story, if my job is best done if someone has a greater understanding of the story and doesn't notice me.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. So just on that point, what would the 16-year-old boy you were think of who you've become today?
If he was 16, he would have been horrified. At 16, he was going to be immortal and live forever. You know, and invincible. Well, that's somewhere I wouldn't want to go without a psychotherapist in tow.
No worries, no one. Simon, look, you're a real inspiration, and we love that.
Look, I love news.
Yeah.
It's a privilege to be in this role, to be a conduit, to tell people, to be able to give people those stories, to hold authority to account, to inform, and to contribute to society in that way. A small part. Yeah,
and it's brilliant. So to finish off, Simon, if you could look down that camera there, what would you say to the people of New Zealand? What would your wise words be?
It's all about the story. It's not about the people when it comes to news. That's not exactly wise words, but hey, that's what I believe.
Simon Dallow, thank you so much.
Jake's my pleasure.
Cheers.